I was in more pain than I had ever experienced in my entire life. And then all of a sudden, this little voice in my head said, "Where's the pain coming from?" I looked through my body and I could feel the sensations in my knees and my back. And then I could feel this little, like something gnawing at me or something in my brain, like this little tick just feeding on me. And then I could feel it. And as soon as I saw it, all the pain evaporated. That's just kind of when I realized that meditation was a superpower.
Hi, and welcome to the Heart Leader Podcast, where heart and mind aligns. I'm your host, Amber, and today I am joined by Ariadne Mayz. So, Ariadne, thank you for being here and for being willing to open up and tell us about your journey.
Thank you for having me, Amber. I'm very excited to be here.
I know that when we were introduced by Corey, part of the reason he was mentioning that we should talk was because he felt like we had very similar backgrounds and paths. So with our month being all about vulnerability, are you willing to share a little bit about what brought you to a point where you are opening your soul and writing children's books and building meditations and creating artwork and doing all of these beautiful things that are so aligned with energy, when maybe that's not where you actually originated your career from?
Sure, yeah. Well, I mean, my life before, I would say about 32, that's when things really started to shift in my life. My life before that was very normal, I guess you would call it. I had average jobs. I mean, I've bounced around at a bunch of different jobs because I would get bored. I would usually hit the year mark and then I would just get just so restless and bored and I just wanted to do something different. So I would have a little mental breakdown or breakthrough, as we called it, or as you call it. And then I would start a new job and do the whole thing all over again. And that was just my cycle. That's what I did for since I was 16, really. And then I always told myself that if I got a government job where I only worked 4 days a week, where I got good pay, good benefits, low stress, nobody really knew what I did, then I'd be happy. Then I'd be happy. And then I got the government job, 4 days a week, good pay, good benefits. No one knew what I did. So I could just do whatever I wanted kind of thing. And around the year mark, I hit that itch again. And that's when I started to panic because I'm like, well, this is what I thought would make me happy. This is what everybody said would be a good job for me. It was stable, it was dependable. And here I am, I'm still miserable. So I knew that I needed to make a change in my life. I needed to fix something on the inside because everything I was doing on the outside wasn't working. The jobs I was seeking, the relationships I was seeking, they weren't fulfilling me. So of course, I knew about meditation, but I had spent years avoiding it, as many people do, because it for some reason seems so off-putting to people before they've started meditating. I mean, I guess it seems like a big challenge. Like, how am I just going to sit there clearing my thoughts for 15 minutes? It seems like an impossible task before you start doing it.
Heck
But
yeah.
yeah, but I was at my wit's end and I needed to do something. I didn't want to go on antidepressants again. I'd been on those before in my life and they just kind of made me, well, the first time they worked, but when I wanted to go off of them, it was bad. Like, I spiraled downwards and it was a really dark time in my life. And so I avoided them for about 10 years. And then my doctor suggested I go on them again. So I did. But this time it was like I was a zombie. I couldn't find joy in anything. I couldn't be happy. I couldn't be sad. I couldn't feel anything. And to me, that felt worse than being depressed. So I went off those and I just did the best I could to try to to try to be happy. But then I committed to meditation. I had a surgery, so I was going to be off for about a month from work. So I decided this is the best time. I have nothing else on my plate. I'm going to devote 20 minutes every day to meditating. And I did that for the whole of December. And I tell you that the change that I noticed right away, well, in the first week, I started to notice a mood elevation. And then around the second, third week, I could actually start to feel the energy. And that was really fun because I'd never felt that before. And it felt like I could move it around. What I've come to realize now is that I was just becoming aware of it, and it felt like I was moving around. I wasn't quite at the point where I could move it yet. I was just becoming aware of it, but it was still really cool. And in that month alone, it really transformed my life, and it made me want to go deeper into what you can accomplish with meditation. And so I discovered this 10-day Vipassana meditation retreat. I'm sure you've heard of them, where you go away for 10 days and you're just in silent meditation. It's a
Yeah.
free thing that you can do. And that was the kicker, because it was free. I can go away for 10 days and learn meditation on a deeper level. So I did this. I found one in just north of Calgary in Alberta. Oh, I forget the name of it, but it's in the middle of nowhere. Like you drive for me it was a 7 hour drive from where I live, and the last 2 3 hours of it is just prairie. It's just flat land, and you see nothing but the horizon there. And then all of a sudden, this tiny little village pops up, and then there it is. It was a I think it was a converted nursing home or something like that. So it had a nice open setup. I don't know if you want me to go into too
Oh,
much of what
yeah.
it's like there. Yeah, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so how they do it is they have two wings, and they have the men in one wing and the women in another, and we're not allowed to intermingle or anything like that. Your outside areas are separate too, so there's no chance of you, you know, getting together and doing that
Being
kind of stuff.
distracted during this inner reflection time. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. The whole idea is to be alone, to be by yourself. That's why there's no talking. You're allowed to talk, of course, on the first day. You get there, they orient you and tell you what's going to happen. But after that night, I think about 6 o'clock, that's when they rang the gong, and then that's when we were no longer, I wouldn't say allowed to talk, but it's you're there, you know that you're there for a silent meditation. So nobody talks. No, you're not even supposed to look at each other in the eyes. You're supposed to really insulate yourself from your own experience. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. I wanted to leave every moment of every day. I wanted to run home. It was too hard. It was frustrating. I just remember feeling like I wasn't actually going to make it through it, because it felt so hard, and I couldn't articulate why it was hard. It wasn't just sitting there for 10 hours a day, not all at once. You'd sit for like 2 hour increments, and then you take a break and go get a snack or water or walk around or something like that. But for 10 hours during the day, you're meditating, you're sitting there meditating. And our minds, our monkey minds, they're always just wanting to do stuff. So to sit there and not move, you feel this, I don't know what it is inside, but this little itchiness that just like is screaming at you all the time. Like, we have to get out of here. This is not right. We're going to die. It's obviously the ego, right? It's the ego that doesn't want to be still. It doesn't want to be calm. And so the first few days were really tough. I wasn't going to leave. I made a promise to myself I wasn't going to leave, but it was just misery. And on the fourth day, that's when things started to turn around, because we had this thing called the determined sitting, where we were supposed to, up to this point, you could shift around, you could move, change positions, that kind of stuff. Not a big deal. But for the determined sitting, they wanted you to sit there for 2 hours, not move a muscle, not shift your weight, not rearrange yourself, sit silent and still for 2 hours. And so I made the promise to myself that I would do this. And usually around the half hour, 45-minute mark is when you start feeling the pain. And for me, it was my knees, my lower back. So it started as usual around 30 minutes, but I kept pushing and pushing, and the pain kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I think I was probably at the 1 hour, 45, maybe 50-minute mark when I was in more pain than I had ever experienced in my entire life. My entire body was just on fire. I felt like I was going to explode from the pain. I didn't know how I could handle a single second more of that. And then all of a sudden, this little voice in my head said, well, where's the pain coming from? And then I looked through my body, and it didn't feel like, I could feel the sensations in my knees and my back, but something inside was like, no, that's not where the pain's coming from. Where's the pain coming from? And then I searched more, and then came up to my mind, and then I could feel this little, like something gnawing at me, or something in my brain, like this little tick, just, or leech or something, just feeding on me. And then I could feel it. And as soon as I saw it, all the pain evaporated. It was all gone instantly, all of it gone. It only lasted for like a microsecond, but I knew that I could do it at that point. I knew that I could find that pain in my brain and essentially just become aware of it and it will go away. It's not like I had to do anything. It's not like I had to heal it or anything like that. All I had to do was become aware of it and it evaporated. And I'd never experienced that before. So that was like discovering magic in that moment. And I made it to the 2 hours. And, that's not to say I didn't have any more pain. I was still in pain. It still takes time to sit there and focus on the pain and let it go. So when I got up and I'm now in my head again thinking, yeah, the pain's come back. But I'm still exhilarated because I sat there for 2 hours in the determined sitting. That's just kind of when I realized that meditation was a superpower. And amazing things could happen if you learn how to harness it, to surrender to it, let go, and just let the process show you who you are and how to heal. And it's not full of effort. It's just sitting there in silence with what ails you and looking at it, sitting with it, and giving compassion to it. So that experience really, I would say, jump started my meditation. And when I got home, all I wanted to do was meditate. And the channel came not long after that because I just felt that more people needed to know about meditation. And no one in my life meditates. That's the funny thing. Like no one in my personal life meditates, even though they know what I do. They stay away from it, which is interesting. But the impact I've had on the YouTube channel has been everything I was ever looking for. People starting meditation, figuring out how amazing and magical it can be, and having their own lives changed. And so it was all worth it.
That to me just shows so much courage, though, because when you can be in that space, when those around you aren't, they still love you, they still support you for where you are. But it's not like you're surrounded by a bunch of people who are doing the exact same thing that you are. Yet you're
Exactly.
still out there and you're like, this is me. I know who I am. I'm going to get out there and I'm going to shine the light for others who are like me, even if they're not in my direct vicinity. And I know that that light will attract those who need this in their lives. And thanks to modern technology, we can get it out there in that way, in that capacity. Because then what that did is, as I was saying in the beginning, it attracted our mutual friend Corey, who was like, oh my gosh, this woman reminds me so much of my friend Amber. They need to meet so that these two lights together can make an even brighter light that can maybe attract more people. And it's so incredible when that happens. So thank you for being willing to get out there and take what you learned from that experience and share it with other people so that then we could find each other. Because I'm highly grateful we did.
Me too. That does seem what it seems to be all about, right? You're discovering your own inner light. You're having that courage to bring it forth, like what you've done with the podcast too, and everything you're doing. You're getting it out there in front of people, for the people who need it, for the people who are searching for it. And then when these lights get together and make a bigger, brighter light, it attracts more people in and hopefully raises more people up. At least
Yes,
that's the hope.
exactly. So, can you talk a little bit about your channel? Because I was so thrilled to discover it and listen and zen out.
That's what I like to hear. Yes. Yeah, the channel started. Well, I had been listening to a lot of guided meditations as I was getting introduced to meditation, and I there was always something missing in the ones that I listened to. Not to say they weren't good, but you have your own personal taste and things you want to hear and whatnot. So I thought, well, maybe I have something to offer people through my way I channel meditations. Like if I just kind of describe how the process works for me anyway, then maybe other people can kind of get in on that and find their own flow. It when I started it, I didn't start it thinking this is going to be my career. I just thought this is something I'm going to do to kind of give back because I had gotten so much from meditation and I felt like I needed to give it back to the world in whatever way I could. Inspire as many people to meditate as possible. It really is. I mean, magic. That's the only word that I can think of when it comes to meditation. And it works every time. Every time I'm in a state where I'm confused or angry or sad, the last thing I want to do is meditate. But if I meditate, it's healed in under a minute usually. So if that's not magic, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
completely agree. It gives you the chance, and the way you described it, to sit with it and listen. Listen to your body, listen to your feelings. It's not about only clearing thoughts. We clear thoughts so that we can listen and feel. So when we look at it from that, oh, I'm doing this for the action of clearing thoughts, then we're missing a huge portion, which is the feminine aspect of nurturing, right? Getting in connection with that. Okay, so if we're only focused on the action of the doing, then we're missing the being.
And it's hard, I think, for us modern people to make that connection too, because we've been trained to do, right? Since we're kids. What are you going to be when you grow up? What sports are you going to do? Like, it's always this action of exerting force, exerting control or something over the situation. And that's the antithesis of meditation. Meditation, you're just sitting there to let go of everything. You have no real goal when you're sitting in that silence. You're just there to learn, to release, to allow whatever's going to happen, and you have no control over it. You're just a student, I guess. And that's really hard for a lot of people. That seems to be the main thing that people get hung up on with meditation, at least that I talk to, is they're like, well, I can't force my mind to shut up. That's not what you're supposed to do. Just let the thoughts be. It's okay. Just watch them like clouds. You're going to have them, especially in the beginning. Those thoughts are going to be running like just all over the place. You're not going to calm them. You have to be able to sit there for a while with them to be able to become aware of what they actually are, and then see that they're not you. You are this observer watching them. And there's something that happens when you're watching the thoughts as the observer, that it's like you're watching a river or something. You're just watching it all go by, like, oh, it's nothing, it's fine, everything's good, I'm here. That's just distraction. That's just illusion. That's not who I am. And when you're able to make that connection and make that switch in your mind and your heart, you become a different person, a totally different person. I don't know, has that happened to you too, where you've shifted in your life and it's like you had this old life and then now you have this new life and it's completely different?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was almost that fast.
Yeah.
So, and I found very similar to you, where there was a pivotal event that caused me to kind of take that step back and feel who I was. It was always there, and it was under the covers of the life I felt I was supposed to have, much like you described. I was told, okay, if you do this and if you do this, this career, this outside of you will make you happy. But then you get there and you're like, well, wait a second, this feels empty. It's wonderful and it's a gift. And I'm grateful that I received it. It gave me so many skills and so many tools. So, not taking away any of the gifts that come from it. But at the same time, it doesn't give you the fulfillment, because fulfillment's from the inside, it's not from the outside. And so when I learned what it meant to truly be from the inside, to align all of my bodies, as we call them in the Vedas, to know what it meant to peel every layer and to connect every layer and to live in that true authenticity and to be vulnerable enough to reach out to the people I love and say, I need help in this capacity. And I need support from you because I see I have a gap here and you have a strength here. And we are truly all one. So how can I rely on you to be the piece of me that I don't contain here? Then I finally learned what it meant to have that oneness and flow, even in human form. But it took so much because the world I came from, it was all out for myself. I'll step on you to get ahead. And so it almost beat that vulnerability out of me. So,
Yeah. What
it,
did you do before?
I worked in a corporate job. For a
Oh,
short period of time, I worked in government, but I think I lasted all of 2 weeks in that. So,
yeah. Yeah, there's something about government that just drains your soul so fast.
yeah.
I guess where I worked, I just felt ineffectual. Like there wasn't anything we could do. We'd have people come in asking for help, and it's like we were kind of sanitized from being empathetic. I actually just had a conversation with one of our clients the other day who says that he misses me there because I was the only one that acted real, and everyone else is just like a bureaucrat. And that's
Yeah.
the sad truth about government jobs is I don't know if it's you feel so secure in your job that nothing can boot you out of it, or I don't know if it just encourages a lack of empathy, but government just is not conducive for humans. It's every single government office I've ever worked in has been like that. It's just this energy you can feel. I remember when I walked into the last office I worked in for the first time to meet everybody, there was the receptionist sitting there, and I'll never forget the look in her face. Her eyes were just lifeless. She had this look like she was the walking dead. There was no zest in her. There was no life. There was no joy. There was nothing but just this office worker. That's what she was. She was an office worker. I'll never forget that face because that was one of the faces I saw when I had my mental breakthrough, my final one at the government job where everything changed. I saw her face and something inside said, if you stay here, that's going to be you in 10 years. You're going to lose everything that makes you individual, unique, and you're just going to become a drone to a system that you've given up in. I guess that was the message. I felt this urgency when I had that breakthrough. Like if you don't make a change now, you're never going to make a change. You're never going to change. You have to do it right now. You have to throw caution to the wind. You have to understand that this could throw your whole life up in the wind. Your husband could leave you. You might be penniless. Like this is going to change your life whether you want it to or not. But you have to make the step. And I'm so glad I did because three years ago that's when I was working there, and now where I am, the life I have, it's I'm just blessed. That's the only word I can think of. Just blessed that I made that terrifying choice to quit that job and do something different. And the universe provided. I was not dropped by the universe at any point in time. Sure, of course, there's moments where you go through that darkness and you feel like, oh, what did I do? I can't do this. There's no way I can do this. But if you calm down and get to that silent space again, that voice will come back in and give you a big hug and be like, no, you're exactly where you need to be. Just keep going. That's always what it says to me. Just keep going. Whenever I feel like, what's the point? Or this is too hard. That voice just comes in and just always subtly, just keep going. Just keep going. I know you can't see where you're going yet, but just keep going. And I do. And I think that's the key, that you just have to keep going.
And I agree. That is the key. Because when we start to cycle in those chaos moments,
Mm-hmm.
then that means our thoughts have taken over. And we just need to get back to observing the thoughts, as you said, and then calming them down so that we can see what is our ego and what is actually the universe and our soul guiding us. And when we can recognize, all right, this is our ego getting scared, which is normal. I mean, it's so normal to get a little bit frightened when we're not certain what's going to happen. But if we're guided by fear, then we're not navigating where our soul is leading us. But if we're navigated by love and that passion that drew us in that direction in the first place, then of course we're going to get to exactly where we desired to go. So we have to take those steps back and go, okay, what is guiding us right now?
I think that's the key too. Whenever you're afraid, you just have to understand that's part of the process. I like to think of those thoughts in my head as just like toddlers throwing temper tantrums. They're just like, just look at me, just listen to me. I just want, this is scary. I'm scared. That's essentially what it is. It's just your ego saying, I'm scared. I don't know what this is. I don't have a map for this. You've never done this before. That's what it is. Whenever you're venturing into new territory that you have no map for, your ego is going to scream and kick and do anything it can to stop you. That's why it places doubt in your mind. You have this wonderful idea of something you want to do, but then the doubt comes in and says, "Oh, I don't think you can do that. Maybe try it next year or something like that." The ego just tries to talk you out of the unknown because it doesn't know where you're going and it can't protect you, or it thinks it can't protect you, right? That's what the ego does. It tries to insulate us so that we're just bubble wrapped in this illusion of safety, which doesn't exist. You're not safe no matter what you do. Even if you stay at that cushy government job, there could be layoffs. Like, there's no guarantees in life. And if you live a life thinking that, well, if I have this job, if I have this partner, if I have this bank account, then I'm going to be good. That's not the case. In fact, life is probably going to throw you a bigger curveball than had you made the commitment to follow your own path, because that's what the universe does. It goes after what you truly want and puts it in front of your face. And if you don't look, it's gonna like punch you in the face with it. It's gonna knock you over. You can't run from it. There's no way you can get out of who you are supposed to be. I think you can ignore it and you can kind of shut yourself off like that office worker. But what it leads to is, it's worse than death, in my opinion. It's a life of just sadness and unfulfilled purpose. Those are the people that I want to reach. Those people who are just, they've given up. They're just existing. Because I know what it feels like to just exist. You're just going through the motions and you just feel like a zombie. It's not like you want to die. You just don't want to live like that. You're in this middle place where it feels very uncomfortable. And I hope that I can reach those people and help them realize that that's a good thing. If you're uncomfortable, it means that you have the potential to have a huge breakthrough into something that you've always wanted. Like, all the pieces are lining up for you. You just have to go do it. You just have to seize the day, seize the opportunity, and take a chance. Because what do you have to lose? Like, I don't want to be on my deathbed and think, I wish I would have tried this. I wish I would have done that. I don't want to. I know too many people who lived that life where they never followed their dreams and all they ever talk about is the path that they could have taken. I don't want that. I don't want that for anybody. I want everyone to commit to that light, that love inside of them, and just give it to the world with everything they have, because you're running out of time. We're all running out of time to express that light within us. And I think that's why we're here. We're here to express that light, that beautiful love that is for everyone, that you can share freely if you just trust and have faith that this is why you're here. You're just here to love. It's that simple. You're not here to be the next Elon Musk. You're not here to be the next president. You're just here to love. And when you get that, then everything you do will be inspired by light and love and faith. You just have to get that one thing in your head that you're here for good. You're good. So just go be good.
100%. And we'll all find our own path and our own way of doing that. If we look at animals, they show us a ton about how to be who we are exactly as we are. And so thank you for that little reminder. And who cares about like material things? A material thing is never going to matter over the connection to a person.
Never.
Or another dog. Just doesn't
No.
come into their mind frame. I love that.
That connection is something else. We just had a dog that had for about 10 years and she passed away last summer. And it honestly, that experience of her death was, it's weird to say, but it was so beautiful. It was just me and her. She took a turn for the worse and she went within 2 days. She passed naturally, but I took her to the vet because I was going to get her euthanized because she couldn't even stand up anymore. She couldn't move. She couldn't eat. She couldn't drink. She had pneumonia. She was filled with cancer. She was, she was done. While I was waiting outside with her, because they had this area behind the vet where you could have your dog out in the sun, and it was a beautiful day. The birds were singing, so I was sitting there petting her, loving her, and telling her that it was okay to go. And as I said that, she she went, like she expired right in that moment. And the strange thing too was when it happened, it was just me and her. And for years, I had said to her, I'm going to be with you at the very last moment of your life if I can help it. I promise you that I'm not going to leave you to some vet or something like that. I'm going to be there with you. And that's what it was. It was me holding her head. I was looking in her eyes. She was looking in mine. Of course, I'm crying. And I just told her, you can go, baby. It's okay. I'm going to be okay. And at that moment, that's the moment that she just, her body like stretched out. She did a little tremor and then she was gone. It was just like that. And as she was passing, the vets came out so that they could be with me right as she passed. So I wasn't alone. And I feel that was some sort of, if it was her planning or the universe's planning to just ensure that I wouldn't be alone when she passed, but we would still have our time together when she passed. It was, she taught me so much about life, that dog. Oh, I miss her every day. But she's here. She's right here. Like, she'll never leave. She's embedded in my soul.
I would love to talk about what it means to go from like being in that space of discomfort, right? It's like a shoe that just doesn't fit and you can keep wearing it because everybody says it looks good. Or you can realize that it just doesn't freaking fit. How did you take that off? How did you figure out that what didn't fit didn't fit?
Well, it was just an innocuous day like any other day. It was a Wednesday. I'm at my desk doing my work. I was kind of like an accountant, so I did a lot with numbers. So I'm just sitting inputting numbers in this spreadsheet like I did every day, and then all of a sudden the numbers just kind of shifted. They didn't make any sense to me. I didn't understand numbers anymore in that moment. And so I'm sitting here thinking that am I having a stroke? What's happening? Why can't I understand what numbers are? And then I start laughing because I thought it was so ridiculous. I'm an accountant and I don't understand what numbers are. So I start laughing in my little cubicle. And then I start getting scared because, oh, I don't know what numbers are. And then literally the walls of my cubicle start to like squish in on me. I could even see them moving. It was like compressing in on me, and my vision started getting tunnel vision, and I just started like I couldn't breathe, and I was panicking, and I didn't want anybody else in my office to know what was happening. So I'm trying to keep all of this as quiet as possible. But here I am, just having a I've never experienced anything like that. I thought something was happening to my brain, like I was having a stroke. I managed to get on, we had this internal chat, like messenger kind of thing. So I managed to get to my supervisor and I told her what was happening. And she was an angel in that situation. She'd been through it many times before. Stress leave was something that was very common in the place that I worked in. So she basically walked me through it, just told me to breathe, relax, it's going to be okay. So she stayed on that chat with me for about an hour. And then finally I was at the place where I could leave. And I left knowing full well I was never going to come back. Even though it wasn't official, there was something in me when I left that building that was like, oh, we're done this. We're not going to come back to this life. I just felt this shift in me. And sure enough, I never went back. And I was able to take stress leave for about 6 months after that. And for that entire time, I was still technically employed with them. But every time I went near that building, I would start shaking and trembling and sweating. The day that I quit at that 6 month mark, I could go by that building and just be steady. There was no more shaking, no more anxiety. It was done. And that's when everything started anew. So that was the best breakthrough in my life.
And what did you do after that? Like, how did you go from that level of a breakthrough to writing amazing children's books, like what you have sitting behind you, creating magnificent art, which I'm hoping you're going to channel through a piece for me, and creating these wonderful meditations?
So it wasn't all right at first. So in that initial 6 months, I focused on, actually, I had my first book out already, The Tiny Things That Timothy Saw. So I had that one out and ready to go. And I decided I have a skill now, I can illustrate. So I'm going to go and be a freelance illustrator. So that's what I did for that first 6 months. I picked up jobs wherever I could. I didn't make a lot of money. I made very little money that first year. It was really hard on my marriage, on my life. It was probably the hardest time of my life. So that goes to show you that just because you have a breakthrough and an awakening and you committed yourself to this new life, that doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's probably going to be harder than it's ever been, but that's because you're building a whole new life, right? You had this life before that you'd started, you had this progression, but now you're starting from scratch, and it's going to take time. Like you're not going to be able to just jump into it and you know how to do it, right? It takes time to learn something new. So it took me a couple years before I was making steady income with the freelancing. But once I got to that stage where I had some regulars, then it was good. Like I'm in a really good place now. And the everything else, like the books, came from just being a freelance illustrator, trying to get better at that. The books I feel are my main calling. There's something there's a message in each one of them that I'm trying to get across, like kindness, honesty, courage, and faith. That's the themes of these books here. I feel like if I can't get them out, they start attacking my mind, if that makes sense. Like they won't leave me alone. If I don't if I don't keep doing it, I go a little nutty because I feel like this is my main calling. That's just how I feel. But yeah, I just have to keep going with them.
Well, and it supports what we were talking about earlier, where ego is going to come in the beginning, and their fear is going to be there, right? So the first couple of years, it wasn't like you went straight from one thing to another thing. And it was like, oh, I'm a raging success. Here we go. I was so right. So right
Yeah.
to leave that job. And anyone who's listening to this and is either in transition or contemplating a transition, like we know where you are. I did the same thing. I walked in and quit a very lucrative corporate job. Everyone thought I was a nutcase. And, from the outside, it probably looked that way. But when your soul is telling you that's what you need to do, it's exactly what you need to do because there is no other option. It's what you need to do. And then when your soul has an expression, when it's saying, okay, this is what we need to express, this is what is coming through us. For you, it's those children's stories. And then there are other things that trickle through from a creative perspective. For me, it's this message of love, however it flows through. Like love is my purpose for being here in all expressions. And so, like you, if I wasn't doing something that was an expression of love, I'll go nutty. There's no way to not find an avenue to say, here's how we can, as a human collective, love our planet, love each other, love the animals. We can do better by loving one another. And that sweet, sweet angel right there. But we have to do what you were saying in the beginning, which is get to a place where we can observe thoughts and observe what is flowing through us first. So we know how to even hear what's flowing through us.
That's it, isn't it? That's your barometer. That's how you know if you're on, I don't like saying the right path or the wrong path because I think ultimately everyone's on the right path, but that's your compass. That's what steers you towards the direction of something that will fulfill you and fulfill the people around you, or towards something that's selfish, that may look good in the public eye, but isn't going to feel good in your soul. And that it's that voice in your head that's always steering you forward. And all you have to do is just quiet down for just a few seconds and listen to it, because it's there, right there, ready to give you whatever you need. It's always with you. That's one of the experiences I had in one of the deeper meditations I've been in. I had this very visceral feeling of, I don't know what you want to call it, like a spirit guide or the Holy Spirit or just some sort of higher spirit that had always been with me since birth, that has always been there and is always trying to guide me, but it can't communicate with me when I'm in here and I'm not in here. But the moment I'm in here, there it is, ready to help me with whatever I need. I remember that feeling because I started crying at the love that this spirit felt for me, that it has always been there and it will never go anywhere. There's nothing I can do to make it abandon me. It's always there. I just have to listen to it. It's like this partnership with the universe that you just have to love. And that's how you get that relationship going. And the more you love, the more powerful it gets. That's the beauty of it. I haven't found a ceiling yet where, okay, that's enough love for you. You're done. It just keeps going. I don't think it ever ends. I think you just keep feeling this love and this light until you reach this divine level where you are light and love. And that's where we're all headed. And that little voice will get you there. You don't have to listen to it. You can take the other path, but we all know where that leads. I think everyone may have to take that path at some point in their life too, to figure out that there's nothing for you down there other than material goods, nothing that's going to fulfill you. Because how would you know what you truly want, that love, that harmony in your life? How would you know that's what you want if you haven't experienced the opposite of it? So, I mean, that's the dark night of the soul, right? You have to wander the desert until you find that thing that pulls you forward and you're disciplined enough to listen to it.
So, if someone wants to explore these books that you have behind you, learn a little bit more about the stories you're telling, or hear any of these meditations, where do they go? How do they learn more about you?
Well, my main website, which has links to everything, is soulbirdstudio.ca. And then the books have their own site, which is just spiralfairytales.com. And then Willow Bend Zen is just on YouTube. But again, all the links for everything I do is at soulbirdstudio.ca.
Okay. And it's soul is in our soul, SOUL.
Yeah, SOULBIRD studio.ca.
All right. You got to tell me what came up with that name. Is there like a meaning behind it?
It was something that came to me in meditation. Everything comes to me in meditation. So I'm just sitting there trying to come up with a name, and then all of a sudden, there it is in my head. As soon as I close my eyes and just surrender to it, there's the name. And same for Spiral Fairy Tales too. Same for Willow Bend Zen. It's always in that meditative state where everything worthwhile comes to me through meditation. Every inspiration I've had for a book, every meditation session I've ever done, it always just comes from that place. And I wouldn't have it any other way.
So do you do breath practices, anything to get you into that meditative state? Is there tips or tricks that you can give people? What is it that gets you to a point where you can be the observer of your thoughts?
I have tried many different breath work techniques, but ultimately I just take the simple path. I just sit there, I close my eyes, I start breathing. I'll usually, if I have a hard time getting into it, I'll focus on one area of my body, like my nose, what the air feels like coming in and out of my nose. And it doesn't take that long anymore to get to that stage. I think everybody has to find what works for them, right? You have to go through a bunch of different techniques and maybe take some different tutorials on how to get into that meditative state. But ultimately, you're going to take all those different things and form something together that'll work for you. But me, I like to keep it easy, very simple, and just sit down, start breathing, eyes closed, focus on the way my heart feels, the way my lungs feel, just really getting in connection with my body. And that's just how I do it.
I agree with you. Everyone is so unique in what helps them become the observer of a thought. I know many people sitting down and inward reflecting would not be their first step because they are so highly active. So I recommend getting out, taking a walk, and observing nature, because nature can help you go from all the millions of thoughts swirling around to at least focusing those on something that is an external calming factor. Then you can begin to navigate inward. But I also love body awareness. For me, that's an amazing because I can get at least feedback from my body. What does my body need from me right now that maybe I haven't listened to sitting in a chair for 6 hours today? But really taking the time to explore different channels, different individuals who are sharing techniques out on YouTube so that you can find the one that fits for you, which listening to Willow Bend Zen, you blend this amazing music with guided meditation. Do you create the music that you have out there, or do you have someone who helps you with that?
I do. I have a lovely individual who makes all my music for me custom. So he's he's definitely tuned in. He creates some beautiful pieces, and I'm very lucky to have him.
I extend my compliments to him because, yes, it helps drive you even deeper so that you can really connect. So I would encourage individuals to listen to that. We'll make sure we post your link so anyone can go out there. I know I found it on Amazon Music too.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I found you out there.
Oh, well, I think I'm listed on Amazon. I don't, I don't know the way my podcast platform thing is structured. I can't actually go into the individual directories or whatever it is. I just see that I'm listed, so I don't really know where my podcast is. I get people coming from all different sources, which is cool. Like I found you here and here, and I didn't know I was there. So nice.
Yeah, it was fantastic. So you had mentioned as well that when you do your art pieces, they are not as though you just, okay, I'm thinking of painting a bird today or artistically, digitally creating a flower. How do you come up with these? Where do you get that flow, that creative flow for the images that if people look on your website, they'll see?
Meditation again. Everything stems from meditation. Whenever I want to do a new piece, I'll sit. It doesn't take long, a minute even. Just sit with my eyes closed. What do I want to express with this piece? How do I want it to look? What do I want to feel when I look at it? What is it that I'm trying to get out of me? Like I don't I don't unfortunately do a lot of personal pieces anymore, which is a shame because it's fun to do personal pieces. It's really expressive of what's going on in your inner world. I think it's a form of meditation too, getting that which you can't necessarily articulate out into the world through a visual medium is very helpful for self growth. But when I do a personal piece, yeah, I'll just sit there and see it in my heart first, and then do what I can to bring it onto the visual medium that I can. But everything I do is it begins with meditation. I don't feel I feel like I'm trying to force things too much when I don't meditate first. Like I'm trying to again use my mind instead of my heart to move forward, and it just never really works out. When I try to overthink a piece, it just looks muddled and confusing. So no, I get into that flow state, and then I let source do the rest. I let source guide my pen and inspire me with this color or this composition, and it always works out. So I trust. I have faith. It'll be okay.
And I have no doubt because there's an image that you created where there's a lady who is wearing a blindfold with a dove. Mm-hmm. And I nearly stopped in my tracks because I've seen that image and I myself created something very similar to it. Even talking about it, I almost cry when I saw it. So was that an original piece? Is it?
Yeah, it was an original piece. It was. I remember sitting down to do it, and I didn't quite know what I wanted to do. I just had this idea of a woman in a desert with a blindfold on, reaching for a dove, and the water that flowed through from her was just an afterthought. But that was my main idea. That's how I felt. I felt like I was blinded in a desert, reaching for some semblance of faith. That was at the very beginning of my awakening journey too. So you can kind of sense the confusion and the loss or the pain, the loneliness in that as well. And then it just came together. But I think it's interesting that you kind of had a similar experience with something like that, because I think we're all drawing on the same thing, right? We're all trying to get to the same point. And so many of us can have the same experience with similar images. And it means like, because we're all drawing from that same source, which is very interesting.
So beautiful. And it reignites us back to that fact that we have that heart coherence, right? When we are drawing from here, when we're truly allowing ourselves to return to source from our heart, then we feel each other and we reunite from that space. And it isn't about ownership. It isn't about this is mine and you shall not touch. It is this is ours. And let's creatively flow in this together. And Ariadne's vision of this is different than my vision of this, but it's a similar vision. And how beautiful of a vision it is. And when I saw yours, it was just like, whoa, how amazing that we have a shared vision because we're feeling the same thing.
That's, I think, exactly what it is. We're feeling the same thing and we're just expressing it in different ways. And
yeah.
that's what all of us are doing. We're all just tuning into that highest source that manifests in different ways. And then we just try and bring it into the world the best we can to share with other people who are also having those same experiences, who maybe can't put a visual to it, or put the written word to it. It can be frustrating when you have this feeling inside of you that you can't express. You don't know how to articulate it to people, but you need to get it out. I think that's the beauty of art, because that's what all my pieces are. They all stem from something inside of me that I need to get out, that I need to express to people this way I'm feeling that I don't understand. And when I can get it in a visual medium, I can see it and be like, oh, that's what's going on with me. It is a form of meditation. It's just like active meditation, but it gets you to the same place. Very effective. Art is very effective in the spiritual path.
Yes.
And anyone can do it. I always say that to people. I do a lot of farmers markets, and I have people come up to me and say, oh, I could never do that. You're so talented. And then I tell them, 3 years ago, I couldn't draw stick figures. I didn't know how to do anything related to art. I had to learn it. I watched YouTube tutorials. I practiced on my own. I figured it out because there was something in me that I needed to get out. And actually, that desire came from when I was at that meditation retreat. I remember towards the end, I just had this creative fire in me that I had never felt before. And I just wanted to paint. I didn't know what I wanted to paint, but I just wanted to paint. And as soon as I got home, I bought all these paints and all these canvases, and I just started painting, and I was awful. But I started. That's the important part. You just have to start. If there's something in you that you want to get out, that even there's just a tinkle of oh, I'd really like to do that, just do it. Just do it. That's just my advice to people. Just stop waiting or making an excuse that you're not good enough or you'll never be good enough, because you'll never be good enough if you don't try, if you just don't start. And there's so much wasted potential out there from people who are just afraid, and that's tragic, because that fear isn't doing anything for you.
What an amazing way to wrap this up. Thank you for that. And you are a beautiful example of what's possible.
So are you.
Well, thank you. Well, let's just keep showing what is possible, using love as the barometer. Like when we allow love to be what guides us, then we're not afraid of things not coming to fruition because we know there's no other potential. Things will always align. And so let's just keep loving and living to our fullest potential. Now, can you remind our community where they can find you once again?
Of course, probably the easiest way is just go to soulbirdstudio.ca, and then all my links are there for you.
And Willow Bend Zen has all kinds of amazing things to listen to. Makes me very happy to listen to your voice guiding through a meditation.
Good. Thank you. That's all I want.
All right. Thank you again for being here with us today. And thank your little fur friend.
I will. Oh, I will. I'll give him lots of kisses.
Really appreciate you. And thank you very much to our Suivera community for joining us on another episode of the Heart Leader podcast, where our heart and our mind align. We have our free vulnerability journal available this month. All you have to do is hop on social media, find us, and direct message us the word love, and we will get that right over to you. Until next time, I'm your host, Amber, and I look forward to seeing you in the Suivera community.